human touch, we need to establish two-way communication. We need to giving feedback or communicative discussions become habits, both for teacher and the students. And then for the last one, in virtual learning, we need to promote students' professionalism. We need to promote students' communication ethics, about their etiquettes, and then about the language used, and even the meaningful conversation, so they know what to say or what to do within the virtual learning. When we talk about these best practices of blended learning, especially virtual situation, now we move specifically to virtual learning itself. So virtual learning is distance learning with electronic study content. So implement both asynchronous and synchronous. And then this virtual learning exists in virtual learning environment. Next, where virtual learning happens, of course, in virtual classroom. And then in this virtual classroom, we need to develop online learning environment, which allows the student to have live interactions with the teachers in the atmosphere of teaching and learning activities, of course. And this condition and the demand of having virtual classroom will lead the teachers or educators to do something important. That is redesign instructional model. Many educators, even in Indonesia, and especially in my university, my seniors a bit difficult to change the mode from face-to-face to online, and I believe it has been experienced by many people. And but like or dislike, you have to redesign the instruction. The first one is about interactivity. How we can design an interactive situation where the students engage and motivate to learn. And then the next one, how to develop student-centered interaction. And then the next one is that how to design various learning activities, not only about PowerPoint presentation, not only about video recording or video conference, but also other activities which are engaging. And then the next one, how to develop a psychologically safe environment, feel secure, and we can protect the students' privacy as well. And then the last one is how to make positive and constructive feedback to students. Because as in face-to-face, we can directly facing the students and approach the student, but in virtual environment, we need to provide ourselves and spend our time to give positive and constructive feedback. So the students can learn and having a self-reflection and then getting better and having a better achievement even. And then this redesign of instructions may result a consequence on the assessment, of course. So you can imagine what kind of assessment appropriate for those activities, because every activity must be measured. And we have to quantify the students because by the end of the semester, we have to make an evaluation of what has been done by the student. And also we have to know the advancement or the progress of the students, whether the student achieve or obtain the learning objectives. And then is there any strength or weaknesses of the students' skill or competencies that need to be improved. So we have to measure, and this measurement we can do it through assessment. The next question, how to assess this? Are you going to use traditional assessment? Are you going to use multiple choice type test? Are you going to use true or false, matching, yes, no question, or authentic assessment? When I talk about authentic assessment, we talk about the holistic assessment, integrated assessment, sustainable assessment. And of course, we talk about alternative assessment, which can lead the students to real life setting. Next. Authentic assessment is suggested because in authentic assessment, as all of you know, that representing real life setting, and then this is a kind of multiple forms of assessment at once. We are collecting the students' competencies, their skill, their attitudes at the same time. I mean, on the process and even as a product. And then when we talk about authenticity, we talk about the sense that what they have learned and what they've known in the learning process are meaningful to them and can be used in their life in the wider community, or even for their career, or even for the next courses. It's meaningful. Not only memorizing or recalling memory. And then the next one, when we talk about kinds of authentic assessment, I believe that all of you knows about this, have known about this, about there are two prominent kinds of authentic assessment: portfolio assessment and performance assessment, and also self-assessment and peer assessment. Peer assessment and self-assessment can be included in portfolio assessment and performance assessment. When we talk about portfolio assessment, it's a collection of students' work. Self-assessment, student self-assessment is there, self-regulated learning is there, and then even criteria to be fulfilled by the students must be there. And then when we talk about performance assessment, there are many assessments that can be implemented for the previous activities that I've mentioned. For example, oral interviews, and then story or text retelling, and then writing essay, and then writing paper, journal, and then letters, and then afterwards having a project or exhibitions, and then demonstration, and then constructed response items in the form of written report. And last one, teacher observation. It depends on the trait that you want to measure. And then the next one, when I talk about self-assessment and peer assessment, you can assess your students solely using self-assessment or peer assessment for a particular trait, or you can include self-assessment and peer assessment inside the performance assessment. For example, you are measuring students' project. You yourself as a teacher, you can assess your students' performance, But if you would like to have further information about the students' understanding about what they have known, or what they have learned, or what they believe that they have learned, we can use self-assessment as a kind of self-reflection for them. And then peer assessment to make sure their judgment. Well, now we talk about transparent assessment. This is the focus of my concern on this session, is that being transparent is a must in virtual learning. We cannot just mention, or we cannot just put the student's mark as, okay, you are A+, without knowing why they've got that mark. So in transparent assessment, as a teacher, you have to ensure that your assessment scheme, your plan for the assessment is visible to your students, starting from the criteria or the indicators, and then until the actual tools you use to measure them or to assess them, the actual instruments used, and then the students should have an access to that. And then when we talk about tools for scoring, as what I've mentioned just now, tools of scoring, there are plenty, but there are three dominant ones. The first one, checklist. Checklist is yes/no format. I mean, existence or non-existence of behaviors or activities, or can be a particular trait, and then specific criteria. And then the next one is rating scale. So you have a scale. It's a kind of degree, can be degree of frequency, and then can be ranging from the description is based on the skill or attitudes or even the knowledge that you want to measure. And then this kind of instrument used to see whether the student have certain behavior, skills, or knowledge or strategies. And then the next one is rubric. When we talk about rubric, there is a set of criteria to evaluate students' performance, students' understanding or students' capabilities, and there is a fixed measurement scale, and sometimes it's called scoring rubric. So checklist, rating scale, and scoring rubric important for the teacher to make in order to make sure that your assessment transparent. Well, what is the relation of the previous explanation about scoring rubric and online learning platform? Previously, Professor Menaksi has mentioned about many online learning platforms, and then can be Google Classroom, and then Microsoft Teams, or provided by Office 365, and then Schoology, Nearpod, Edmodo, Moodle, and many things. And then we have other virtual conference tools such as Zoom, Skype, and so forth. And then the next question, which is the best, all of them have their own strengths and weaknesses. And even every university or institution has their own consideration in selecting the online learning platforms. And in specifically in my university, we um, we are given or provided Office 365 on so we are using Microsoft Teams as our online learning platform, especially in this situation, I mean in COVID-19 pandemic. But I myself, I have used Microsoft Teams since 2015 for blended classes.
Lou,
Yes?
I kindly request you please conclude within 2 minutes.
Yes, okay. So I would like to tell you that you have to integrate all application to your platform into your language learning situation or your needs for the assessment. So you can utilize OneDrive and then link to your class notebook and then Office Online and Outlook. Just to see, this is the example how I manage my students. This is the I'm not promoting, I'm just showing what I've done. So this is the example how I arrange my student having the classroom meeting, and then afterwards I have discussion with the students, and then having review on that, and then what I should make sure certain that I have clear instruction. And then for the last one, the grading system clear for the students. So the student can access privately their grade and why they have that grade. And then as my last statement, how to maintain transparent authentic assessment, I have some points. The first one, your authentic assessment, your assessment must be in line with your course learning objective. And then the next one, the instrument must be suitable or match with your assignment and learning objective. And then the next one, it must be, the student must have a clear understanding about the assessment, about the criteria, about the due time, about the procedure, about the final mark calculation measurement, and then the transparency in terms of rubric used. And then the next one is that about, I suggest that self and peer assessment should be optimized because it will help you to make it transparent. Students know, what they can do, what they cannot do, and then their peer can help them to optimize their competencies. And then grading should be transparent and accessible privately, and then feedback and discussion is a must, conducted by the teachers. And then for the last one, please remember, if you are an educator, that keep in your mind that you have to realize this. If your student don't know where you want them to go, how will they get there? So make sure that your assessment match with your learning objective, and you let your students know about the learning objective, and what kind of assessment is appropriate for that and why they should realize that it's important. They should feel engaged in the learning process. And this is my suggestion, even to myself, that I, as a teacher, we have to be critical, we have to be creative, we have to be collaborative and communicative among colleges or and even toward the students especially. That's all about my
Thank you,
presentation.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
You're
Thank you, Lou,
welcome.
for this nice and informative session, giving a lot of information regarding assessment and authentic assessment and rubric and tools. So, thank you so
You
much.
are welcome.
Our next, thank you. Our next speaker is Shaman. Shaman is here. Shaban sir?
Yes. I'm very much
Yeah.
here.
In meal between time, I request to Sujata ma'am is here. Sujata ma'am is here.
I'm here. I'm here,
Yeah.
Sunita.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am. So, ma'am, I welcome you. I request you
Yeah.
within 2 minutes, please reflect on online assessment and pedagogical practices.
Yeah. In fact, I'll just I have no question, but I have just some observations on the presentations that I've heard today. And one point I want to make is that we must differentiate between technology and pedagogy. The potential danger is many times, technology is overpowering pedagogy. So that differentiation has to be there, that these are all online devices and tools, and pedagogy, like problem solving or the discussion methodology, has a big role to play. And the second point that I want to talk about is that so far evaluation and examination, which is online, is concerned, open book examination has a big role to play. So I think teachers today, they have to talk about questions about application, analysis and creation, and online exam and open book exams, I find, will have a big role to play in the future of our education system post-pandemic. And the blended mode, I feel, will be the new normal, because I find that, we cannot do without the face-to-face component. And with online and digital learning, the face-to-face component has to be there if the goals of education if they have to be met. Thank you, Sunita.
Thank you, ma'am. मैं आपकी बात से बिल्कुल सहमत हूँ